Hello everyone, my name is Jay Mamie, and first of all, let me thank you for taking a few minutes to watch this video. I think that the information you'll find could create the right decisions for you that can enhance, diversify, and expand your real estate business. I know that in our company there's a number of people that are part of our firm that come from different backgrounds. I myself used to be a real estate agent also and still have my hands in it to an extent. But this video and this presentation is geared for those of you that are in the real estate profession or in the mortgage profession as well, that have come to a point and place in your career based on circumstances that you have no control over, which we're going to dive into that in a minute or two, that you've decided it's time to consider a pivot. Maybe there's something else that you can do, not to abandon real estate or the lending world because that is your passion, but something that can allow you to create other layers of income that work perfectly with real estate and helping people buy an asset, which is what property is, right? So what I'm going to share with you now for the next few minutes is hopefully something that will create a sense of intrigue. Maybe something that you've not thought about before, or maybe you have considered expanding and diversifying. These days you have to do that just to survive, right? It's a very challenging market out there, regardless of what you're told. The reality is it's a challenging market, and it could very well be that way for a while. So what do you do in the interim? You expand and diversify. So I'm going to encourage you to keep an open mind as I go through this. I think it'll make a lot of sense. And in the end, let me ask you, get together with the person that shared this recording with you. They'll go further. They'll dive into more details. And I think in the end, you'll find out that this is a good investment of your time and energy and focus and a way to expand your professional offerings and create more layers of income. But let's start with by taking a little bit of what Elon Musk said about 2 years ago when there started to be indications that we could be in for a rough ride with the economy and all of this, the indications that a recession was close. Elon Musk said that in order for, they asked him, how do you survive? This in the interview, and you can find this on YouTube. You can find this if you Google it. They asked Elon Musk, hey, how do you survive a tough time? From a corporate standpoint, how do you survive a tough time? I thought his answer not only was appropriate for, obviously, from a corporate level, but very appropriate for an individual level. If you know there are tough times ahead, how do you survive until you get to the other side? How do you survive and thrive while the challenges that many are facing are stumbling blocks for them? They don't become stumbling blocks for you. Well, here's what he said. He says, number one, you have to predict. He said, you always have to stay ahead of what could happen. By predicting what can happen, you become more prepared, which is the second thing he said. He said you get prepared for what's ahead. He talked about prediction and preparation is based on data. He says if the data is overwhelming and is leading you into a direction, pay attention to the data, predict, prepare, and then persevere. Right now, if you're in the lending world, if you're in the real estate world, you have to look at the data so that you can prepare. After the prediction is over, we're in a tough market now, right? It's a challenging housing market. Well, so how do you persevere? How do you persevere is the key of what we're talking about here. Well, here's the data. A few years ago, the data started to become obvious when the headlines screamed the housing market being in trouble. You don't have to go very far to have read those housing headlines on any platform that you subscribe to. And then you started to see more data, banks and financial institutions starting to lay off some of their staff, starting to shut down their lending departments, okay? That's very important. The second thing you have to recognize is what are the headlines that industry publications were talking about at the time. I've got a number of them to share with you just so that you and I could get on the same page with data. Forbes magazine back in 2023 in February said, hey, they started a forecast that we could be in for a difficult housing market. And those headlines continued throughout all of last year, 22 and 23. Even LinkedIn got into the conversation by talking about layoffs. And, you know, when companies start to lay off people, people don't go out and buy property. Isn't that true? People don't do decisions. They don't make major purchases when they're uncertain about their employment. And what's happened? Now you find that a lot of realtors, in fact, by the time that you're watching this video, you already know this, there are realtors right now that have abandoned ship. They've gone to look for jobs, they're picking up second employment, and rightfully so. You have to figure out a way to continue to generate an income. And I'm hoping that what we're going to share with you might be an avenue for you to explore. But there's no question about it. Right now, what's happening is even more realtors are not renewing their licenses. The Association of Real Estate Professionals reports that this year has been the steepest, sharpest decline in licensing renewals. That's an indication that a lot of the realtors are not interested in sticking around and doing something that they don't see is going to be profitable or generate any income. Okay, and those that are staying in, they understand they're going to be in for the long haul, and it could be very, very challenging. Certainly not what it was like 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? But the headlines continue on the mortgage side to really give an indication that those rates aren't going anywhere anytime soon. That's a problem. Mortgage rates were predicted to drop. Well, as of this recording a few weeks ago, we found out the Fed is not going to change any of those rates, making it very, very difficult. So what do you find that you're facing in terms of the data? Interest rates are still pretty high. Property values are still pretty high. People aren't interested in selling because they're concerned about where they're going to buy something that they can get less than what they're for cheaper than what they're going to with the house that they live in. Insurance, homeowners insurance, auto insurance is through the roof. Makes it very difficult for someone to buy at the moment. And again, these mortgage rates don't help. Here's some other data. Just here in the state of Texas alone, there's over 31,000 currently licensed real estate agents in Texas. That's a lot of people selling a product. And when you consider how many houses, now this is data as of a couple of months ago, but I think you get the point. There's over 140,000 listings currently in Texas. Well, you've got 141,000 listings. You've got 31,000 licensed agents. You've got an oversaturation of licensed professionals that are vying for the same small market. That's a problem. There's just aren't enough. There's just not enough opportunity to host and to accommodate that many licensed people. But where could you go to pivot? And that's the point of this presentation. Where could you go to pivot where it doesn't change your identity? It doesn't cause you to create a new conversation that is out of the spectrum of the brand that you've developed as a real estate agent. All you have to do is continue to follow the data. So what does the data say as to where the most appropriate place would be for you to consider expanding and diversifying your professional career? Not decreasing your career, not reducing what you offer, but increasing what you offer in a value-based proposition to gain more market share because there is a great demand. Well, here's one. Americans right now are concerned more than ever about where they stand financially. In the last 2 decades, right now, there's a greater concern by Americans regarding their personal financial situation. And when there's concern, there's opportunity. The next headline, key findings. And again, guys, this is the data. I'm sharing with you the data. Key findings continue to display where the mindset of Americans are right now. They're concerned about their own personal financial situations, about debt and taxes, savings and retirement, and protecting loved ones. They see what is happening in their surroundings and they're concerned. Well, if we look at what statistics showed in 2022, statistics are the same in 2023. What are the top concerns? LIMRA is a watchdog, just like the real estate watchdog magazines that are out there and lending magazines that are out there. LIMRA is the watchdog for those in our industry, and they predict data. So here's one of the data that they gave. What are the top concerns that the average person in this country, by the way, this average person could be your friend, your family, your coworker, your colleague, anyone that you know up and down the block where you live. The average person's concerns are the same. Number one concern, they're living retirement. That's a concern, right? You want to one day retire and have enough money to enjoy the rest of your life. But if you look at all of those other concerns, health and savings and taxes and debt, these are all the same concerns that those who you've served in the past, your real estate clients that you served in the past, the ones that you're currently serving now, and those in the future you may serve, they have the same concerns. And if you're the one that's establishing a relationship with them, and doesn't it make sense for you to bring solutions or at least offer solutions to those concerns that you already know they have? That's why Baylor University ran a fantastic study a few years ago. Back in 2017, Baylor University ran a study where they talked about how a real estate professional is in the best position to bring more value to their clients because that client is predisposed based on the work the realtor did or the loan officer did. That client is now predisposed to hear how you may be able to help them with some of their other concerns. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, think about this. If you have a relationship with a doctor, let's say the doctor is a dentist or your primary care, and that doctor says, hey, I think I have other ways that I can help you improve your health, that relationship, that trust you have with your doctor is going to give you the sense of confidence that he may recommend something that is in your best benefit, right? Well, same thing in the real estate world. I learned that in 1999 when I started to explore how I can diversify my real estate business. And I learned that the relationship that I had developed with those individuals from the past, they were very much open to hearing what else I could offer them. Well, that's exactly what the results from the Baylor research indicated. People that you develop a relationship with are predisposed to hear how else you can help them. You don't have to twist their arms. So what are those needs? How do you make a strategic pivot? If you're in the lending world, if you're in the mortgage world, if real estate world, how can you capitalize to expand your own professional career so that you can create more value in the marketplace? Well, let's take a look at the two things that are most important when you are a realtor. Your buyer's needs and your seller's needs, whether you are representing the buyer or you're representing the seller. If you look here, the buyer has specific needs that they all are going to have solutions to meet. So in other words, if a buyer buys a house, they need life insurance to protect the mortgage. They need mortgage protection. They need long-term care in case all of a sudden one of them happens to become sick through a healthcare crisis. Where's the income going to come to continue to pay this mortgage? They need a will and set up an estate plan. They have to consider retirement savings. They have to do a bunch of other things in addition to generating extra income. You know, you and I both know when someone buys a home, they plan as best they can for expenses, but boy, those expenses can be way off from what they calculated early on. Isn't that true? So every new homeowner is not opposed to learning how they can create additional income to help manage the additional expenses that they're incurring. Heck, homeowners right now who are finding their insurance premiums have gone through the roof are scrambling to figure out how do I cut more expenses or make more money just to stay afloat. Doesn't it make sense for you to at least make an offer that you could bring solutions to some of those concerns that they have? If they're predisposed, chances are they'll say yes. What about the seller? What does the seller need? A whole set of other scenarios. That seller wants someone who's trusted to provide them guidance with what to do with this money they just earned or rather inherited because they sold their property. If you were the one they trusted to sell their largest possession, what makes you think they won't give you an opportunity to hear what other solutions, what other ways you can help them with the largest amount of money they've ever received because of the work you did in helping them sell their home? But they have other needs as well that is pretty common to a seller. Critical illness, someone gets sick, retirement planning, and also having a will and an estate plan. All of these services were under my nose. I just didn't know that. So here's an example of the potentiality of earnings. And I know that if we're in the business of helping people, we want to help people, but we also have an interest in learning how much can I earn. I know that was my interest. I wasn't going to go through the process of getting a license and getting trained and investing my time and energy in those activities unless I felt there was going to be a financial gain, a financial reward worthwhile. I liked helping people, but I wanted to make sure that I had that was appropriately compensated for my work. So here's an example, that just a very quick example. When you meet with the person that you will get together with thereafter, you'll have Lots of examples that'll be shared with you, but for the sake of time, here's a brief one. So you have a buyer, he buys a house, and let's just say we have an example there. We have a young couple, 35 years old, they buy a house, it's a $500,000 mortgage, they're on a budget, but they want to buy life insurance to protect the mortgage should either one of them die. Plain, simple, nothing complex, happens all day long, in and out of every other state. Except that most people don't have that offer made to them immediately. They end up doing it somewhere down the road by someone else who didn't sell them the house. What if you sold them the house and you got a license and all you did was become a referral partner? So in other words, you didn't do any of the application work, you didn't do any of the quoting, you simply picked up your license, worked with someone in our firm, and became a referral partner. You could see that you'll make a few dollars on that, a couple $100 as a referral. But if you decide to do the work yourself, you get paid a lot more. And I always encourage people to learn how to do the paperwork and get paid 100% of the compensation instead of referring it out. But that's your choice. If that same couple decided to do a very different type of policy, not a term insurance policy, but a little bit more of a robust policy that incorporates long-term care and additional coverages and tax-deferred savings, and it's permanent, not term insurance, then that couple who may have a little bit more that they can put away decides to do those two policies, put $200 away into them, and you could see per policy they're going to pay about $2,400 for the combination of both. $2,400 if you do it yourself. If you refer it, you can still pick up $1,000 or so just by having the license and referring it to your referral partner. That's one way that we can help. But what about the seller? What about the seller? Let's take a look at the seller. If you have a client that you help sell their property, and let's say if you have a 50-year-old and they have a $400,000 sale, and they have left after the real estate fees and everything else they're paying off, they're left with $250,000. It's a very common situation. After the debts and the real estate fees are paid, they're left with the additional net gain. Let's say in this case $250,000. That individual who has $250,000 is going to be interested in what do I do with this $250,000, whereas it was sitting in a real estate asset and now it's in liquid. What can I do to put it away for some long-term gain? If you were to recommend, of the many things that there's available to recommend, but just for simplicity's sake, if you recommended an annuity product for them because of the guarantees, the ability to grow it tax deferred, and all the features that come along with that particular strategy, that would pay you on average about $6,000, $3,000 if you referred it. Now I'm giving you samples and examples. They can range depending on the client. But the point I'm making to you is there is money on the table that you're leaving behind simply because you do not know, and you're not asking the right questions, and you don't have access to provide solutions. Well, through our organization, you can solve that. Our company, Wealthwave, is here to do one thing: help solve the financial concerns that people are struggling with. And boy, are they struggling with these products or with these problems today. We represent a host of companies. We are sort of the Costco of financial education. We represent multiple companies with multiple solutions. So when you are working with us as an independent financial agent, in other words, you are independent. You're not captive. You're not succumbing to a 9-to-5 career. You are expressing yourself independently with the freedom that you have, that you enjoy now as a realtor or a loan officer, except now you are expanding that offering to include different programs and services. And as you can see, we have a lot of ways here to help people that you would have access to as well. So how do you stop leaving money on the table as I wrap up? This is how simple it is. I've been doing this now for 30 years, and this is how simple it is. It's asking a question. That's all it is. Remember what I said earlier. Your customers, your clients, they are predisposed because you're a good person, you've offered good services. Whether or not they actually follow through with they bought the home, they sold the home, they did the mortgage with you, it doesn't matter. If you had a good relationship with them, what matters is that they like you and they are predisposed. But if you ended up doing the piece of business with them, that's even better, right? So what's the question you would ask them? You say, John, I trust that I did a good job for you. And they're going to say yes. And say, I offer solutions to different ways to solve problems. Or can I make a recommendation? Or is there another way I can help you? As you can see on my screen, there's no shortage of ways to ask that question. The answer will always be from someone who's predisposed, sure. And then you have an opportunity to go back in, revisit, reassess, and recommend. So you're probably asking, what do I do next? How do I make this a part of my professional career? It's very simple. Now, unlike the licensing you may have taken to become a loan originator or a real estate agent, which is quite time involving, quite taxing, lots of information. A life insurance producer license, it's a quarter of that content. It is a simple multiple choice exam. The time involved, take it probably 2 weeks to do. We've had people who've taken that exam in a week, week and a half. So the content is far less than what you have done. If you've passed the real estate license or your loan origination certification, you can absolutely pass an insurance producer license because the content is nowhere near as much. That's how simple it is to get started, even if it is just picking up a license and becoming a referral partner. I promise you the expansion of that will draw for you more income rather, and it'll drive your business further. So that way you can survive and thrive while many others probably won't. I encourage you to consider this. Can someone make $100,000 a year doing this, even if it is on a referral basis, let alone a full-time basis, or rather where you are directly writing those transactions and not referring it out to a partner? The answer is yes. You absolutely can make $100,000 a year here. What is the benefit to you to expand? Well, you're going to transform your career. We spoke about that. You're going to deliver more value. You're going to generate more referrals, more income, more passive income. You'll become more memorable, more referable, but it's going to help reduce your uncertainty, meaning you don't have to worry when my next listing is coming, when my next sale is coming, because you've got other avenues to be able to generate income. I appreciate your time. I hope that you get together with the person who invited you. I try to keep an hour presentation as brief as I possibly could, and I think I did a pretty good job at that. But now it's your turn and your time to follow up with this information, learn more, but consider keeping an open mind, because I have seen from my own personal experience for the last 30 years, some things are just no-brainers. Guys, my friends, this is one of those things. It just makes sense. You're not the first. You won't be the last. You'll just be one that is going to continue to grow and expand a real estate, financial services profession that's going to allow you to earn more income, provide a happier life, and more importantly, serve the needs of others greater. I look forward to meeting some of you soon.